Take my heart, wash my soul, renew my mind and make me whole. Take my heart.
Just a title reminding us that we're looking at here, Joshua 12 and 13. I titled this "Passing It Down from Generation to Generation." Passing it down from generation to generation. So, again, what is it? What is it that we're giving? What is it what's going to survive beyond us? So Joshua, getting old, what's going to survive beyond him? So, the first thing I want to look at is, like I said, in Joshua 12:24. This is very significant. And we're going to go right to the very end of Joshua 12. In all, 31 kings were defeated. So last week we dealt with these giants. And how in life we have to conquer, we have to fight against these giants, these scary beasts of a men, or fears or anxieties, these internal things, these spiritual things, these giants. But we could also describe a lot of what we're fighting and facing in life as like 31 kings. What an accomplishment is that? 31 kings. I mean, that is massive. What a work. I mean, that's the kind of work you would, you know what I'm saying? I mean, that's something that's just, kings, governors, rulers, emperors. I mean, who does this kind of stuff? 31 kings defeated because God was with them. And so major accomplishments. They required God's help. So these 31 kings, these powerful, these important people, were defeated by Joshua and the Israelites because God was with them. 1 John 5:4 says, "For everyone who has been born of God overcomes the world." And this is the victory that has overcome the world, our faith. So overcoming the world, producing this, or giving us this victory. It's overcoming the world's victory. And this is, again, this is the New Testament. This is for us to really embrace as Christians. And if you look at the content of this, it's our faith. Again, and this is the victory that's overcome the world, our faith. So what's faith? Faith is reasonable trust in God. Right? There's good reason to believe in God. There's good reason to believe that God exists. There's good reason to believe that God is there to help us. That He's there and He'll help us to overcome, to give us this victory over the world. So that's a major accomplishment. And that can fill in so many different things. Philippians 4:13, "I can do all things through Him who strengthens me." Literally, major accomplishments are done through Him because He strengthens those who have faith in Him. 2 Peter 1:21, this is important. "For no prophecy was ever produced by the will of man, but men spoke from God as they were carried along by the Holy Spirit." So a lot of people talk about, if you're a person who believes in prophecies, like I do, I believe prophecies still exist. That means you believe that God speaks through people, right? And by that I mean not just yourself. God doesn't only just speak to you, He speaks to other people as well. That's what prophecy is. It's when the Holy Spirit moves amongst a person, right? Is that what that says? Men are speaking these words, these prophecies, because they're carried along by the Holy Spirit. The Holy Spirit's moving in them. So if God speaks to you, God speaks to me, people, this is a big part of why fellowship's important. Looking around this room, there's people here that love us and care for us. If not, we wouldn't be here, right? And so if God is speaking through your brothers and sisters, maybe they're saying something to you at different times that are helpful, that might be challenging and encouraging, but maybe God is speaking through others. So again, especially if it's your pastor, for instance, and if I speak through preaching the word or some counsel, or through just chit-chat or fellowship, then maybe something's being said. God could be using me. And yet, of course, that goes for myself. That goes for others who care for you in this room. Okay? And this is important. And the thing that sucks about this, or concerns about this, is when we refuse to listen to God when He speaks through other people who we love and trust and have fellowship. What that could be is a sign of stubbornness or pride, which is truly unfortunate. 2 Timothy 2:21 says this, "Therefore, if anyone cleanse himself, what is dishonorable, he will be a vessel for honorable use, set apart and holy, useful to the master of the house, ready for every good work." Again, we're talking about major accomplishments. So hearing from God, knowing what God wants, having faith in him, he strengthens us, he prepares us. A big part of that is cleaning up the house, if you will, purifying oneself, making our lives vessels that are honorable for use. And of course, that's interaction with God. It's not us trying very hard to be good. That's us interacting with God and allowing him to change us. Be prepared, ready for every good work. John 8:12 says this. Again, Jesus spoke to them, saying, "I am the light of the world. Whoever follows me will not walk in darkness." Darkness may include spiritual blindness, like many assume when they read this, like walking in darkness, so spiritual blindness, but just general ignorance as well as darkness. "I am the light of the world. Whoever follows me will not walk in spiritual blindness or ignorance or anything else like that darkness could describe, but will have light of life." Again, clarity. Be able to see light of life. It comes through Christ. So major accomplishments, they require God's help. We need God in every one of these levels. Him speaking to us, even through others at church and the fellowship. Helping us to overcome through the faith we have in him. Again, and that also includes strength. Allowing God to purify us, to disciple us, to make us holy, changing us from the inside out, preparing us for good work. And then taking off those blinders so we're no longer ignorant, no longer blind. We can actually know that we have wisdom, we can have understanding when we walk with God. So with that, Joshua, what is your exit strategy? And the same thing can be asked of me and of you and everyone else. I know with the church that I come from, Calvary, when Chuck Smith passed away, there was a big split. And I think a part of that could have been dealt with differently if there was a clear exit strategy. And I'm not going to talk too much about that. But the reality is, I would hope and wish that if things were done differently, that they would be done better. And so I have to learn from that and think, if I were to exit ministry, how would you guys go without me? And the thing is, I feel like we do put together some good plans. We do have a ministry that thrives and that actually exists even with my absence. So, but yet again, something that needs to be worked on and thought about. What is my exit strategy? There's a lot of churches that literally close the door and throw away the keys or hand the keys over to some other group because, well, first of all, it's just a building. Who cares about buildings? It's people that the church is really built of. But there's these ministries that fail. They grow weak and small and they disappear. And my criticism to that is their exit strategy failed when they never raised up the next generation. And that's why I called this message, passing it on to next generation, passing on the faith message, building that faith. And so when you see churches, and just recently I heard of, Phila, he was talking about a church in Shots they're closing up their building. It's official, and they're handing over the keys to a trustee organization, and it was inevitable, and it was sad. He's a good friend of mine, and we were chatting, and I was really sad about that. And I invited him to come to Cornerstone, and hopefully you will see him. But the thing is, I think to myself, where's your kids at? Where's your sons and your daughters, and where's the second generation? Why do they not have the passion, for ministry? Why is no one ever raised up? And it's not just small independent churches either, guys, like us and like this church I was thinking about here, but it's also in denominational churches. If there's no one with passion in ministry being lifted up and raised up next generation, all you're going to get is a hireling, and that's no better. Again, there's another church here. I'm not going to say any names, but they had, or it was denominational, and they needed a minister, and because there was no one there locally that had passion, that grew up in the ministry, understood the church, understood Shots, understood the demographics, understood the gospel for Shots, there was no one there. There was just older people who were just wanting to be ministered to, but there was no people like my age even, or younger, to do the work. And so what happens when there's no one there to do the work, they have to call up someone, a denominational, organization, or hierarchy. And what they do is they put out a job offer on a bulletin, or, maybe on the internet, looking for a minister to come to Shots. Well, what are you going to get? You're going to get someone who thought it would be a nice idea to go to college, get a degree, and get a job in ministry. They're hireling. They're here to do a job. They don't have the same passion as someone who grew up in it and who understood the ministry, who's seen the good, the bad, who has an attachment to the people, who have an attachment to the calling, and who would be so passionate for it, they would do it for nothing. They would volunteer, they would give everything to see Jesus Christ reach the community. No, you're not going to get those kind of people. You're going to get someone who applies for a job, and he's going to get a paycheck, a stipends, maybe a place to stay in, and then just show up to do the formal ministry. Preach on a Sunday, do house visits if that is required, do marry and bury. And that to me is no better, because that hireling at some point is going to retire, and then you're going to find someone else. You know what I'm saying? There's no real longevity there. Where's the kids? Where's the young families? Where's the passion? So Joshua, verse 1 of chapter 13, when he was an old man, the Lord said to him, "You're growing old, and much land remains to be conquered." Again, he can't do all the work himself. He has to think of an exit strategy. Who's going to take over for you, man? This is a territory that remains. I myself, God says, because God doesn't get old. He's always there. He always remains. I myself will drive out the people of the land ahead of the Israelites. So be sure, Joshua, be sure to give this land to Israel as a special possession, just as I have commanded you. So again, in Ephesians 1:11 through to 14, I think we see this concept of a generation handing something over to another generation. It says in Ephesians 1:11, "In him we have obtained an inheritance." Now, for many minds, when we read this, we think, well, what's the inheritance? Well, it's just after Jesus and just dying and going to heaven, right? But there's more to it than that. There's also the responsibility of the gospel, the responsibility of discipleship, the responsibility of being there to continue the work of the ministry. That's a part of the inheritance. We who were the first to hope in Christ might be to the praise of his glory. So we have this first group, but in him you also, when you heard the word of truth, the gospel of your salvation. So so we have this first generation, we who have this and seen it, but we're passing on to you also through hearing the word of truth, the gospel of your salvation. Very important that this is what we're passing on, the word of truth, the gospel of salvation. Hopefully of your salvation, or their salvation, obviously. And they believed, and were sealed with the promise of the Holy Spirit. So again, I wonder how much of the world has crept in to churches, and that's maybe why a lot of churches are failing. And by the way, guys, I don't want to be doom and gloom, but when I research the concept of exit strategy for ministers and ministries, there's nothing. I literally spent an hour. I had to stop because I was wasting time. I couldn't find anything. No advice from any minister, from any denomination or any independent group or any seminary or anywhere. I could not find anyone who actually says, that encourages leaving behind an exit strategy. When you leave ministry, this is what you should be leaving behind. This is how you train the next generation of ministers. Nothing like that. Nothing was available. No blog, no nothing. I want to take anything. Could find nothing. I was really disappointed that there were some interesting things I read, bear in mind, but it didn't really relate to this. There was a lot of articles talking about why the next generation isn't relating, or why it is important to pass on the gospel. But there was no actual exit strategies available. No, nothing. And so I wonder, as such, maybe the world is more promising to the next generation, and this is the kind of an inheritance that many of our church are tempted, the next generation are tempted by. Again, I was doing a music program, with Robert here, and some of the songs that the kids were offering us up to do, for the group, I couldn't do all but one, and they offered 5 or 6 because of the content. I couldn't believe. The content of the song, I'm not going to get into details, basically can be described by Galatians 5:19-21. That's the kind of stuff that these young people are listening to and being subjected to. freely by their own will. And again, I think about my children, and they wouldn't be listening to these songs. I mean, we listen to the radio, and sometimes listen to the radio, there's certain stations we try to avoid. But when the songs come on, you wonder, what is this about? And when they put them to videos, it's even more explicit. So, works of the flesh. That's, if we don't give them the gospel, the word truth, this is what happens. This is what the next thing that's going to be inherited or obtained as an inheritance for the next generation if we're not careful. Sexual morality, impurity, sensuality, idolatry, sorcery, enmity, strife, jealousy, fits of anger, rivalries, dissension, divisions, envy, drunkenness, orgies, and these things, I warn you, Paul's warning, these things, I warn you, those who do such things will not inherit the kingdom of God. So what are we, if we don't give something tangible to the youth, the next generation, we don't establish something that's tangible. This is very realistic, practically and pragmatically what we want to lead. A vision, a mission, a foundation. If it's not established, then first of all, the next generation is not going to take us seriously. They're going to think, oh, boring. Because I think young people want to know what the truth is. And they want to know what is real. And that's why I think a lot of them are walking away, again, looking at research, why young people walk away from church, is they believe that what's happening in churches is just religiosity. It's just old people getting together and having tea and coffee and talking nonsense. They don't believe that actually what's transpiring is truth. And I think that's what they're looking for. They're looking for truth. So we have to establish a good, solid structure of truth, knowing truth, discovering truth, finding truth through what we're doing as a church. If not, they can be led astray by any crazy worldly system. Here's a system. Now, Danny recommends that I maybe spin and do a detailed series on this. Because this is profound. When I was looking, I was sick of looking at what others had not to offer me. So I started asking myself, what does Jesus have to say about an exit strategy? Because Jesus exited, didn't he? Well, okay, arguably he didn't. He's still there. But he did leave the earth. And he did leave the earth to disciples, to the apostles, right? So he did leave something behind. And he did expect them to do the work without him there constantly shepherding them. And my personal opinion, the most detailed portion of scriptures is in Matthew 10, the whole chapter. And so I want to look at this. This is Jesus' exit strategy. And I want to compare it to what you think we might be doing at church. And I think I might want to revisit this in the future and do it in like a week to week, like break it down. But just to summarize it, this is how it goes. Matthew 10, verse 1. He, Jesus, called 12 disciples, people. Not a mega church, right? Like, even back then, not a mega church. The mega church was an option. Remember? When you showed up at one place, you had like a multitude, and another place, another multitude. Remember that? He had no problem drawing a crowd. But when it came to establishing an exit strategy, a long-lasting ministry, he chose 12. Not the multitude, which is, I think, a lot of churches would like to do nowadays. We're amazing because we got thousands of people in our church. Okay, cool. But where's the depth? Jesus was more interested in the depth of the individual. That's why I love Cornerstone. Because I look at you and 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. Okay, we're one shy from 12. If Jesus was happy with 12, I'm happy with 12. Right? And that's the thing. And I don't consider you guys my students. We are all students of Christ. So I guess I'll be the 12th person. But you see, you get the point though. We might feel few and insignificant, but we're not. Because Jesus was very happy with 12. He could have had a multitude. But he chose 12. That's something to think about, guys. And he gave them authority. In other words, he taught them their place in ministry. Their place, what's going on, how to handle authority, how to use their authority. And he goes and talks about the spirits and casting out these evil demons and healing and ministering, caring for people. So he taught them how to care for people and doing it with confidence, knowing how to access God and his strength. Okay, what else did he do? Then he sent them out. Okay, they didn't just convene every Sunday and then go out and do their own worldly things. They actually went out and did something significant in their communities to proclaim the kingdom of heaven. It's available. It's at hand. He also taught them that persecution is going to come their way. So be careful. Be ready for that. Behold, I'm sending you as a sheep in the midst of wolves. So he also taught them how to be wise. So be wise. So again, as Christians, disciples, we're not to be stupid and ignorant and avoid issues, but we need to be wise and thoughtful about things. Which is why we teach the Bible. Because we want to learn. We want to be wise and build wisdom. But also innocent or gentle or without guile, not mixed with impurities. That's what that means, innocent. Don't be anxious. Isn't that a theme that comes up over and over and over again with us? Don't be anxious. Don't be worried about things. Don't be anxious about what you're going to say. Oh, but what if I go to this thing and I say I'm a Christian and they start asking me questions about my faith? Good. But I'm worried about it. Don't be. Let God do the speaking for you. And that's exactly what he says here. So he taught them that as you speak, you don't need to be worried because I'll do the work for you. You just open your mouth. But don't rant and rave. No gossiping and idle talk. But talk very specific about the gospel and how it can save. And if someone challenges you, I'll give you the help to defend yourself. Does that make sense? For it is not you who speak, but the Spirit of your Father speaking through you. He also taught this. The disciple is not above his teacher. So don't get proud. Don't get arrogant. It is enough for the disciple to be like his teacher and a servant like his master. So he teaches his disciples how to be like him. Have no fear. Again, like with anxiety, you have fear. Don't be afraid of people who might hurt you. Do not fear those who can kill your body but cannot kill a soul. Rather, fear him who can destroy the body, or destroy both the body and the soul in hell. So again, we talked about fear last week, didn't we? About the right kind of fear and the good kind of fear. Or the good kind of fear and the bad kind of fear. So the bad kind of fear is fearing anything that's not God. But the right kind of fear is having this reverence for God. We talked about that last week. Second part. Verse 32. So everyone who acknowledges me. So he also taught his disciples that when they go out, some are going to acknowledge and some are not going to acknowledge Christ. So everyone acknowledges me before men, I will also acknowledge before my Father who is in heaven. Whoever denies me before men, I will also die before my Father. So he's preparing them. He's like, listen, when you go out and you speak, I'm speaking through you. Some are going to say yes and some are going to say no. Well, that's okay. Because if they say yes, they acknowledge me before men, then I'll acknowledge them in heaven. That's cool. That's a part of the plan. But you still have to go out and give the message. If they deny you, they're denying me, they're denying God, don't take it personally. Just keep going. Just keep doing it. He taught them that this, being a Christian, being a disciple, is not about popularity. Okay? It's not about making everyone feel good in every circumstance and environment. There's going to be awkward moments. So I think I came to bring peace to the earth. I have not come to bring peace, but a sword. Sword represents dividing the truth. Listen, guys, we need to talk about the truth. We need to get real. This is what he's talking about here. And here's a very important principle that Jesus taught his disciples. Death to oneself. Very important. All this requires death to oneself. Whoever does not take his cross and follow me is not worthy of me. A lot of times in ministry, if we're not careful, we get in the way. Our feelings, our emotions get in the way. Our thoughts, our plans, our ideas about what God's doing or not doing can get in the way. We need to die to oneself, remove ourselves, and let God take over. That's literally what he taught his disciples. That's a major principle, and that's hard to do. Whoever finds his life will lose it, and whoever loses his life for my sake will find it. And then we talk about these rewards. Whoever receives you receives me. Whoever receives me receives him who sent me. So this again talks about the benefits of evangelizing, preaching. And sometimes people will hear the word. They will hear the gospel and they will receive it. It's awesome. You'll be benefited for it, and so will they. You'll be able to experience that. That's awesome. Whoever gives one of these little ones, or these little ones even a cup of cold water, again speaking of disciples, being cared for by people, because he is a disciple, truly I say to you that he will by no means lose his rewards. This is the last slide, then we're going to do the application. So I'm sorry, I'm going a little bit slow today. I feel like I'm just talking a little bit slower. Less slides than usual, though. But ministering to the Lord, this is important. And I want to talk about this. So give me just a few minutes to talk about this one. And it's only just a few minutes. Okay. A lot of what we're talking about here is in regards to ministering to the Lord, ministering to others, isn't it? And And it seems to a lot of people like to think less ministry, think less task or job. And it can be for the most part, if you're looking for it in the wrong places. But if you're looking for it from God, it's rich. What appears to be lost. You can think about the tribe of Levi and how they don't get a lot of land. So it seems like they're at a loss, doesn't it? They don't get the land. That's not fair. So what seems to be lost is well made up by what is gained. Joshua 13 says this in verse 14. This is the allotment of the tribe of Levi. Moses did not assign any allotment of land to the tribe of Levi. Instead, as the Lord had promised them, their allotment came from the offerings burnt on the altar to the Lord, the God of Israel. But Moses, verse 33, gave no allotment of land to the tribe of Levi, for the Lord, their God of Israel, had promised that he himself would be their allotment. In context, we need to look at Numbers 18:20. This is more specific about what they get. Numbers 18:20 says, the Lord said to Aaron, your priests will receive no allotment of land or share of property among the people of Israel. I am your share, your allotment. I mean, for me, this is pretty big. Imagine that I'm your allotment. God's saying that. They get land. They get a bit of dirt and rubble and whatnot. But you serve me, you get me. Is that good enough for you? I mean, I think for a lot of people who rely on physical material things, that's not enough. That just seems a bit cliche. But to the Levites, this is very important. We get as our allotment. God is our share. And it goes further than just an idea. It is a bit tangible as well. Verse 21. As for the tribe of Levi, your relatives, I will compensate them for their service to the tabernacle. Instead of an allotment of land, I will give them the tithes from the entire land of Israel. So again, they were able to live anywhere they want in Israel because they weren't stuck in one region. They could live anywhere they want because they were there to minister to the people, right? So they lived in this area or that area. Wherever they are, they would set up a tabernacle. They would set up a place of worship. And they would take the tithes, the offerings, and they lived off of it. So it wasn't bad. They don't get a lamb, but what they got was pretty cool. God's taking care of them. So here's the application, and we'll end with this, guys. Major accomplishments require God's help. Please make God a part of your plans. Look at how much Israel was able to do in such a short period of time. Again, 31 kings. Make sure your church, that's us, has a plan to pass the baton to the next generation. The consequence of not doing so is very serious. Jesus had a plan. He chose a small group of teachable people. He taught them about authority. Then he sent them out to explain to people how the kingdom of heaven is close by and available to all. He taught them about wisdom, innocence, being free from guile or impurities, how to be free from anxiety by letting God speak through them. He wanted them to be like him, to emulate him, to copy him, to have a right understanding of fear, to teach others to acknowledge him, Jesus and God, and not to deny him, how to die to themselves and follow Jesus successfully. So you want to follow Jesus successfully? According to Christ's curriculum, you must die to yourself. Serving God does then have its costs, but it also has great benefits. It's interesting to see how the New Testament also how they kind of correlate, especially the concept of the Levites, how they were serving God. And you think, well, I don't want to serve God, But serving God and giving up that thing, that, dying to oneself and feelings and passions and goals and whatever ideas, to die to that for God is rich. God will take care of you if that's what he's called you to do. And I believe he's called us to do that in some way, shape, or form.